and welcome to Into the Fold, a show where two best friends share their love of Leigh Bardugo's Grishaverse chapter by chapter. I'm Jeff.
And I'm Juliana, and this week we are starting Shadow and Bone chapters 3 and 4. So if you have read the chapters, that's great. If not, we will be doing summaries, so don't really worry about it too much. But we're happy to be here, right, Jeff?
We certainly are, and if you have not read up to that point in the books, if you want to hit the pause button, read it for yourself, draw your own conclusions, and then come back to us, we will still be here.
We're making progress.
Making progress. Now, we really don't have any news for the fandom per se, but we do want to update everybody on what's going on with us here at Into the Fold, so we're going to have a little bit of news from the front.
Okay, so news from the front that we have this week. Just in general, Jeff and I have just started this podcast, and we're looking to improve ourselves as we go. So if anyone has any general suggestions for the podcast, anything you'd like to see or hear us talk about, or any names potentially for segments that have yet to be unnamed, I'm still looking for a name for the trivia question that comes at the end of the episode. So if you have a great idea for that, that would be really awesome, because I haven't thought of anything yet. So
Divine inspiration will come. Sometimes divine inspiration gets dropped in your email.
Yes. So if your name is Divine Inspiration, please send us an email at intothefoldpod@gmail.com, and I promise I will get back to you. We have one other announcement, news from the front, something that I am working on currently, and hopefully will be out by the time this episode comes out. If not, it will be coming very soon, but we will be opening an Etsy shop that will contain merchandise for the podcast, which is really exciting. So we will be having stickers, and we also have pins. And if you have seen on our social media, I have been making little keftas for our friend Kendra. And then I made one for Jeff. I made one for myself. And
you made some really pretty ones for Eric and Terry over at GrishaCast also.
Yes, go and check those out on their YouTube channel. They're on their shelf when they record their podcast. And I will be offering those on our Etsy shop as well. So if you would like a little piece of custom kefta art, or you would like a pin or a sticker from us, you can head on over to our Etsy shop, which will be Into the Fold on Etsy. So if it's not live already, it will be live very soon. Please just check our social media channels, and we will be announcing when that will be live.
And in case anybody is wondering, to be absolutely clear, any money that we get from the Etsy shop is just going to be used to help the show, right?
Yep. Any money is going to first go to cover just the costs of the stuff that we're making, but then everything else is just going to get funneled right back into the show just to make it a better quality, give us access to better tools, better equipment, things like that. So by buying things on the Etsy shop, you are supporting the show directly, which is really awesome. So we thank you all in advance, and we hope that you like what you see, and maybe I'll make some really fun keftas for people. That'd be really fun. But okay, so next we have the voice of the people.
We have gotten a fantastic response from our listening audience. So this voice of the people is going to include a couple of emails to start with. We got one from our dear friend Melanie. Juliana, would you share that email with us?
Yes. So Mel said, "Hello, my dearies. First of all, I'm so happy we got to start reading the books. I'm really enjoying it. A couple of small points on episode 3. Darkling Drag Queen. I'm here for it, as am I, Mel. Mal and Alina's relationship equals buckle up, peeps. Every time you say Mal, I hear Mel, and it's going to take me time to not be confused. But also, I feel like the book's description of the scene where they first enter the fold is so much scarier, because you are really pulled into the moment of pure darkness in which you don't see anything at all. A true nightmare. In the show, I do understand that people need to see what's happening to the characters, but it definitely takes away from the fear that Leigh successfully awakens in us while reading her texts. A question. I know it would make the storyline much less interesting. You need that powerful threat and danger element there, but why do they not travel around the fold? From the maps, it looks like on the lower end there are mountains, but the other end is free, as far as I can tell. It's a much longer way, of course, but I would rather travel longer, than die. Wouldn't you? Happy to see that you're having fun with the pod. Keep being encouraged to go your way with it and know that you are loved. Your Tidemaker friend with the perfectly fitting Dolphin Patronus, Mel, not Mal.
That's gonna be a running thing with her. Mel, not Mal.
Mel, not Mal.
She raises a good point about the Shadowfold, though, because the first time I read this series, I didn't think about that. I just thought, well, you know what? They make a big deal about this Shadowfold. If we don't go into it and we don't see what's inside it, then we don't really have a setup for Alina to unleash her power. So it's a plot point.
Yeah, but I was confused about this too, because this was something that Mel brought up in this email that I didn't even think of. And you and I had a lovely conversation because I, too, was like, yeah, why don't they just go around the fold?
Well, there's a couple of different interpretations, I think, of the map of the Grishaverse and of Ravka and all the other countries as well. But when you look at the map, what you see is that the top part of the fold, I guess you could say the northern part of the Shadowfold, actually extends beyond the Ravka-Fjerdan border, and the southern part extends into the Ravkan-Shu-Han border. So you're not going to get those countries to just say, oh, sure, I know we're at war, and, we fight all the time, but if you guys want to cross your border so that you can get across the True Sea and get over to Kerch and make money that we don't get a cut of, sure, why not? So getting around it one end or the other, not going to happen. Now, as far as getting over it,
I still think they can get over it. I stand that you could have two squallers sending people over the fold and just creating an air tunnel and being like whoosh, and have one person catching them and have the other person throwing them over.
Yeah.
Catapult style.
Yeah, squalor catapult. That works great with people, but
yeah.
Look, I don't know math, I don't know physics. I mean, I knew enough to get through school, but math and science were not my strong suits, okay? So and this is a fictional universe where things exist that don't exist in the real world, so I can't even begin to imagine the calculations of Grisha power and what that looks like. I need my buddy Grifferin Prefect from over in another forum to explain that for me, because he's super smart. But I would imagine the concern wouldn't be launching them over the fold. It would be safely making sure that they land. And also, we don't know how tall the Shadowfold is. They don't say. We can look at a map and we can see it extends into one border or the other, but we don't know how tall it is.
I would say it's approximately 5 to 6 trees tall, because in the show it looks like it's about 5 to 6 trees tall.
Is a tree a unit of measure? Because the trees in my yard, if you stacked 5 or 10 of those things, then yeah, that's pretty tall. But there are trees that are even taller. So if you stack 5 or 10 of those, then we're talking about several miles high.
6 Grisha trees tall.
6 Grisha.
That's
okay,
an exact
so now
measurement.
Grisha trees. Okay, you know what? We're not good. We're not good at calculations. So tell you what, if anybody listening has any thoughts on how tall they think the Shadowfold is, or any way to calculate what it would take for squallers to catapult people over it, then just write to us and let us know. Because we are
Honestly,
obviously not going to figure this out.
I would love to have these math calculations.
I would
Truly,
love to have
make
these
my day
math
so much.
calculations also.
Okay, so Jeff, we also got an email from our friend who goes by on other platforms, Frumpy but Super Smart.
Yes, Frumpy but Super Smart. And this is also, fun fact, this is how I learned Frumpy but Super Smart's real name. So it's nice to connect with people across multiple platforms. But their name is Danny. So Danny wrote to us, and they discovered our show by listening to my appearance on But Make It Scary with Sequoia Simone, and I love that because I love that people are listening to that show also. It's a fabulous show.
It's very lovely.
They said they read the Grisha trilogy this year. I'm assuming they mean the Shadow and Bone trilogy, after blowing through Six of Crows and Crooked Kingdom about 2 years ago. They heard the trilogy wasn't quite as good, which is why they put it off for so long, but they had to get through it before the show came out. I feel that. You read it before the adaptation comes out. I feel that. So they commented on, in I think it was our first or second episode, where we talked about the list of most popular fictional boyfriends, And
Oh, yes.
they don't seem to agree with Kaz's appearance on that list because he doesn't seem
Nor do
like
we.
he'd be a very good boyfriend to most people. They said
No.
he'd be way too intense. And I agree.
Yes.
But just to clarify, that list we were referring to was a list of some of the most popular choices. The tone of the article was actually why a lot of those fictional book boyfriends would probably not be somebody that you would want to date. So I think the author of that article is along the same lines as Danny here. And finally, Danny took the Grisha order quiz and found out that they're an Inferni, which they think is pretty cool. They always seem like the most fun type of bender. We used that word bender, and now other people are doing it too. We started something.
Mm-hmm.
We're probably not the first ones to think of that.
Probably not.
And then
but
they
that's
said,
okay.
anyway, I love the show. You guys are doing a great job, Danny. It was so great to hear from you, Danny. So thank you for sharing your thoughts on the show with us. We hope that we get plenty more because I've read Danny's thoughts on other series, and Danny is super smart, like the name says.
Yes. Yes, they are very smart. And thank you, Danny, as well for me. And yeah, we look forward to interacting with you more as the show progresses. So we have a few quick shout outs that we would like to make. So like I mentioned above, I've been making keftas for people. I made one for our friend Kendra Dante, and she posted it on her Instagram. So we just want to shout out to Kendra, say thank you, and we're glad that you liked your little kefta. And also, I would like to say personally that the Darkling as a drag queen is now canon, and I am formally requesting fan art.
We didn't get fan art of the Darkling as a drag queen yet. However, I did want to shout out an Instagram account with really, really cute, really well-drawn fan art for the Grishaverse.
Oh, yes.
I don't know if I would pronounce it correctly, so I'm just going to spell it. It is ARTSYQUI on Instagram.
Yes.
Their fan art is super cute, very accurate depictions of the characters.
So they actually, of about like 2 hours ago, and I messaged it to you too, Jeff, but they did make fan art of Nikolai, specifically because I requested it, and it is absolutely lovely. I will be reposting it to our Instagram, but it is in our Instagram stories right now, currently. But check out our Instagram and also their account, which is ARTSYQUI on Instagram, and just absolutely fabulous art. Loving it so much.
I feel like it's artsy key, but I might have that slightly wrong. But you had asked an interesting question on our social media channels. You wanted to know what job or role would you have if you were in the First Army. Most people were pretty straightforward. They said that they would want to be a map maker. Grishaverse fans said they would be a map maker. Carmen_A said, I think I would be a map maker. I like to draw and travel, so it's perfect. However, I don't know about going into the fold. I feel that too. I would just draw a great big nope across my map.
Yeah. And our friend Kendra also said she would probably be a map maker, but probably lacks the drawing skills. I think my favorite, though, was your friend Vanessa, who is Vanessa9169, who said, I'd be Miles Hat. What an important role.
Wouldn't we all? That's all I'm going to say. We're a family-friendly show. So our friends at the Pretentious Book Club had said, this was Ashley from that show, would like to be a map maker, but would more realistically probably be a deckhand. And then they asked their co-host, Kendall. And Kendall said, bait for the volcra. Oh my gosh.
We have such a great crew of people that we are going to have in the First Army. We have Miles Hat. We have like 5 people who are going to draw things. And then we have someone we're going to put on a skewer and tempt the volcra with.
Hey, if anybody gets hungry, I said I'd be the cook. It's the only thing I could think of. And then we had some updates for our Grisha order tally. What are we up to now?
Yes, so Etherealkai, we have 5. We added Mel, and we added Danny. And we also added D_and_happy. And then we have 6 Corporalkai and 3 Materialkai. So if you would like to be added to our tally of how many of each order we have in our lovely listening audience, please just send us a DM, comment on something on our Instagram or our Twitter, what you are.
Especially if you're
email.
a Materialkai, because Juliana and her other 2 Materialkai are starting to get kind of lonely on this list.
Yeah, we're kind of lonely.
And then before we move on to our main discussion, we got a wonderful review from our friends over at That Pretentious Book Club.
Yes, and they said, Grishaverse fans will love this. If you count yourself as a longtime member of the Grishaverse, or even if you're just joining this amazing fandom, this is a podcast for you. Lovely voices, charming insight, and uplifting conversation are the order of the day on these episodes. Chock full of the most beautifully nerdy content.
Same
Yay!
goes for them. They do a book and episode, which impresses me very much, that they do a whole discussion of an entire book. I have to break it down by chapters. It's the only way that makes sense to me. So the fact that they're able to do that, each episode a different book, is very impressive.
And they rate books by raised pinkies. So the more raised pinky the books get, the better they think the book is.
As fancy as it gets.
Just so fancy.
Super fancy.
Okay, so that is all of the news that we have for this week and this episode. So, Jeff, would you like to get into our main discussion?
Definitely, I would. So to kick off our main discussion, here's what happens in Chapter 3. Alina wakes up to a gun in her face and corporalki healers and heart-renters all around her, which would be terrifying enough if she hadn't just suffered a volcra attack at the end of the last chapter. So they take her to the Grisha tent to debrief about what just happened. We finally get to really meet the Darkling face to face, and Alina thinks he's a little too young to be the Grisha commander. Put a pin in that, it'll be important later. Alina is relieved to see that Mal is still alive, and Alina and the other survivors can only remember a blaze of light, but nobody's really sure at first exactly where it came from. In the end, they agree that based on everything that they do know, it had to have come from Alina, but she's not sure why because she insists she's not Grisha. After a lot of interrogation and after a lot of men being jerks to Alina, the Darkling demonstrates his ability as a living amplifier to call forth her power and confirm that she is definitely a sun summoner. And what's her reward for that? She gets taken away to the Darkling's coach so that she can be transported to the little palace.
Yay. Wow, what a nice thing that she gets in response for her powers. They literally drag her off in the most violent way possible.
Yeah.
And the Darkling is like, be nice to her, Ivan. And he's like, fine. I'd be nice to her.
Is that what Ivan sounds like to you?
Well, I've been listening to the audiobooks, and I very much appreciate how the woman reading the audiobooks does these Russian accents for a lot of the people.
Oh, I love Lauren Fortgang's readings of the audiobooks. I love encouraging people to read actual physical books because I love it myself, but Lauren Fortgang, who does most of the narration for the Grishaverse series, she's just such a fabulous audiobook narrator. Now, I find it curious, though. She does accents for some of these these characters all come from the same country, but she doesn't do the accent for all of them. Like, Alina and Mal, they grew up in Ravka. They've never lived anywhere else. Same for the Darkling. Same for a lot of these soldiers, I would assume. Because it's not like you can grow up in Fjerdans and say, oh, I'm going to move to Ravka one day and join the army. No, it doesn't work that way. But when she reads the audiobooks, the characters, some of them have voices, some of them don't.
Yeah, that's definitely an interesting choice. And I appreciate her Darkling voice, though, too, because it's kind of like smooth.
Very close to the microphone voice. It's also fun the way I love words like oprichniki, especially the way she says them.
Uh-huh. It's so cool. Yeah, if you guys aren't listening to the audiobook, it definitely adds a whole nother layer to these books, and also helps you if you're someone like me who is just very bad at pronouncing things. It gives you a much better idea as to how things are pronounced. But getting into the chapter, Jeff, I feel like you and I could probably talk about the general vibe of the chapter, and I feel like the big underlying theme of this chapter is just like anxiety. There's so much anxiety the whole time from when Alina wakes up until when she's being transported to the tent, and everyone's just feels like they're on edge. All the people around her are on edge. She's on edge. Everyone, pretty much the Darkling, seems to be like having a stick up their butt and being like, oh no!
I feel like most of these people are probably just on edge all the time. But maybe that's just the perspective that we get as readers, the characters that we get to look at. Because we start off in an orphanage where the scary test is about to happen. We don't know anything about it. And then they're standing outside this place called the Shadowfold. Then they go into it and get attacked. And now there's an interrogation. There is no relaxation. Nobody is chilled out.
Spa.
It's very anxiety inducing.
The Darkling seems very calm this entire time. He's just like, because I know there's a part a little bit further down in this chapter where Lee says something along the lines of, from the perspective of Alina, he said something to me as if we were having a chat over tea. And he's just very cool and calm and collected and just playing it very smooth.
Very smooth. But that's part of his thing. He's the commander of the Grisha army. He's more powerful than you, and he knows it. He's not afraid to, this is part of how he flexes. Because everybody else is very, very emotionally high-strung, and they show it. They show it by being angry, they show it by being scared, but he's just very even-keel the whole time, and it's part of what makes him so scary. Because you never know what's going on inside his head.
Well, and I think, too, the fact is that in the books, obviously, this is a written character, and we don't have an actual... We're not looking at a physical person while we're doing it. So, to me, the Darkling in the books is, like, inhuman.
Mm-hmm.
His characteristics, the way he acts, he feels almost like he is just, like, something else. He's not a human being.
Well, yeah,
whereas
they call him the Darkling.
Yeah, which is, I'm pretty sure what Lee is trying to get across. The fact that he is not a human. He is something else he once was, but now he is evolved into this, like, terrible, horrible, very manipulative thing. Whereas in the TV show, obviously, Ben Barnes is a human being, and you can't get around the fact that unless you were going to do some weird kind of, like, uncanny valley, like, editing over him to make him look almost not quite a human, he's a person. Like, he's obviously a person. So I think that's some of it, too.
Well, the Grisha are people. They're just people who have power.
But the Darkling is
kind of like the mutants
in
X-Men. The mutants in X-Men, I mean, the term mutant makes it sound like they're something other than human. They're human beings. They just have power that an average human being wouldn't have. So I don't think there's anything wrong with an interpretation that leads more into the humanity of him. Maybe that makes him more relatable. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I just prefer the less relatable, more sleazy, kind of slimy, very well-written and, like, inhuman version of the Darkling that we get in the books, and that's just my personal preference. No one else needs to agree with me. I'm fine living on my own little hill over here.
I'm fascinated by the dynamic between the First and Second Army soldiers here. I don't really like the way either of them... I don't like the way anybody in this chapter treats Alina, because she is just...
Yeah.
She's getting pushed around. She's getting very roughly handled physically and emotionally. But the dynamic between the First and Second Army soldiers in this chapter makes me wonder, who's actually in charge here?
Yeah, it's definitely not good.
No, we've established that the First Army is the King's Army. It's the People's Army. And then the Grisha are the Darkling's army. They came second. Mm-hmm. It's in their name. But this constant power struggle between these two armies, they're fighting on the same side while almost fighting with each other at the same time.
Oh, yeah, there's clearly a lot of animosity between the First and Second Armies. We see that from the get-go, and it really starts to even play out even more here because they don't even want to let the leader, what is his name? Is he the colonel or something?
The colonel, yeah.
The colonel. They don't even want to let him into the Grishaverse tent to talk, the Grisha tent, to be able to talk to the Darkling and let him know, like, hey, we might have a Sun Summoner here. This is something you should probably take a look at. They just are like, no.
No, I don't give a shit if you're a colonel.
Away.
I don't give a shit if you're Colonel Mustard, dude. You don't get to come in the Grisha tent because you don't belong here. How do you like that? Doesn't feel so good.
Yeah, and you get the Grisha who blocks him getting into the tent, who Alina makes the observation is probably younger than she is. So, I mean, these people have a lot of like to kind of be like, oh no, I'm better than you because I am a Grisha and you are just
and they all do it to each other all the time is the thing.
Yeah, and we get a lot of the thoughts that Alina has towards the Grisha and Mal kind of has and the other people have, except for Alexi. Alexi seems to be the biggest fanboy of the Darkling.
He
and
was
also
the biggest
Grisha.
fanboy of the Darkling. Now he is dead. He is as dead as every dead animal that has ever died.
Which would be very dead. But we see that they don't like them.
No.
They don't like the Grisha. They don't see the Grisha in a positive light, and the Grisha don't seem to see them in a positive light either. So it just seems kind of counterproductive to me to have both of your armies be fighting against each other while also trying to go against something. But that's something that I know I'm going to have a lot of feelings and thoughts towards as we learn more about the Darkling in the coming chapters and his motives when it comes to things. So that's something that I think we'll have better conversations on as we get more information going forward in the chapters.
Now, Alina tries to have a positive attitude about it, though. There's a moment where she says, we had survived the fold, and we would survive this madness, too. I would agree with her if I had never read anything that happened after this, and I don't think that's a spoiler. I think, there's three of there's 3 of these books, and then more books in the series to follow, and I'm thinking, oh, honey... I love Alina for her optimism here, but you have no idea what's coming. But to be fair, nobody does. There's no way to prepare yourself for what's happening next.
Oh, God. No. And that's kind of along the lines of, too, we'll learn more about the Darkling's motives and why there's such a clash between these two armies as we go forward with that plot line as well. But I definitely feel, honestly, like that little bit of optimism is kind of low-key out of character for Alina, too, because she definitely is very almost sadistic in a lot of ways and very sarcastic, which I really appreciate. I love all her...
She has to be. I mean, we talked about that. She's in a man's world, and the men are not treating her nicely, and the women she's immediately interacting with aren't treating her much better. So she has to, as a defense mechanism, she has to be sassy and sarcastic because it's the only way to get them not to take her seriously, because unfortunately they don't, but it's the only way for them to have to listen to her.
And like one of my favorite lines where she calls out the cartographer, she says, Alexi might still be alive if you got off your bony ass to help us. And she's just like calling out these people. Yeah, she's like calling them out left and right, has all these sassy thoughts in her head.
Alina has opened the library and she is reading these First and Second Army people.
Oh yeah, they're all being read, very much so. And I think it's so great that we have such a strong female character in this book series. And I know this is why one of the reasons that you like these books too, Jeff, is because it's just great to have a strong female lead, you know?
And she does that so well, Leigh Bardugo. She writes the kind of female characters that the world just needs so much of. They can fall in love, but their character doesn't revolve around that. They can fall in love with other women, with people of indeterminate gender or sexual orientations. And again, it's part of who they are, but their whole story doesn't revolve around that. In fact, their stories very rarely revolve around just one thing. And across the books, as she uses these characters, they all go through some kind of character growth. None of them at the end of the series look the same way they did going in. The Darkling does not seem to like surprises, though. He has a moment where he says, if there was a sun summoner in Ravka, I would know.
He's just a control freak. That's really all it is. He wants control over everything.
He's flexing again. He doesn't like the idea that there is any Grisha who is not within his network, within his grasp. And he especially doesn't like the idea that somebody else found out about the Sun Summoner and then told him. That's the kind of
he
thing
is not a fan
he
of that.
has to be the first to know. He has to control that story.
Yeah, he has to be the one who is in charge, large and in charge, and yeah, I can tell from reading this chapter, he is pissed off that he is not the first one to find out that he has a sun summoner in his kingdom, in his country.
I didn't even notice this part until you pointed it out, but have they not healed Alina's wounds? I thought that's why the corporal guy were there. I know the Heartrender was probably there to make sure she didn't try any funny stuff, but I thought there was a healer there to try to heal her.
No, they don't heal her until the next chapter.
Is this another part of the Darklings need to control things, though?
I don't know.
Is this
so
the
I was
Darkling
wondering,
wanting, like, he's thinking to himself, okay, I'm going to bring her to the Grisha tent, I'm going to interrogate her, I'm going to amplify her in front of everybody, but I don't want her to look neat and clean the way she went into the fold. I want her battle-scarred, I want her to look like she has been through a thing. Otherwise, if it turns out this power did come from her, people are going to believe it even less. They need to feel this, not just see it.
Yeah, I mean, so one of my general questions is, what the heck happened between when, like, it's related to that too, like, when Alina fainted and when she woke up? Because, one, she doesn't get healed. We see that in the next chapter, and she talks about how when she's being dragged into the Darkling's coach by Ivan, she can feel the volcra wounds throbbing in her back and on her shoulders.
Ouchie.
So clearly she hasn't been healed in any capacity, which, if her wounds are as bad as we are made to think they are, why would you not, like, heal this woman? Like, what if she starts bleeding out and they're like, oh, well, we were going to bring you the Sun Summoner, but she kind of bled out on the skiff, so my bad. Sorry. Oops. And
I mean, maybe clean her up a little bit, but now the more I think about it, the more I think this was something the Darkling probably wanted. He wanted them because this is going to become part of the narrative. They talk about in these chapters about how this isn't going to be kept quiet. This story is going to get out. People are going to talk about it. And I think he wanted this image of her fresh off the battlefield. He didn't want her to look like she had just reported for duty. He wanted her to look like she was at ground zero because that enhances the impact.
Well, see, I wonder how much communication he had with the people between when she kind of set off her light and when he meets with her, because he's not on the skiff.
No.
He's not there. And these people kind of make, as far as we know, that they don't have, like, walkie-talkies or anything. These people kind of make this decision on their own to, one, not tell Alina freaking anything and just be like, nothing's happening here. We're just, like, keeping you chained to the deck. And also to just bring her to to the Darkling, and people just, I mean, I don't know. Like, I don't know how the Darkling would coordinate telling these people, hey, don't heal her because I like her to look like she's rough and tumbled. If you ever get a Sun Summoner, don't do it. I'm just wondering if these people are just scared or what is happening here, because they all seem to kind of fold to what we assume the Darkling would want, but there's no way the Darkling couldn't have communicated with that with them ahead of time. Again, unless we have weird Grishaverse walkie-talkies, which could be a thing.
Well, see, that's the thing, is that we've established that we don't know how much time passed, and we don't know how quickly information travels. If they're worried about what happened here getting all the way across other countries to their militaries and getting her captured before they can safely get her to the capital of Ravka, then obviously there are ways in which information can travel quickly. And also, we don't know exactly how far away his tent was from the part of the fold where this happened. So there is a good chance he probably has people keeping an eye out who are running back and telling him what happened as soon as the skiff came out of the shadow fold. And the Darkling is a person who didn't get where he is without being able to think on his feet. So he probably got that information, I would think, fairly quickly. And then he sends another messenger out when the Corporal guy were sent out to retrieve Alina and bring her back to the tent. They were probably given orders, make sure that she can walk, but don't make her look too healed up. I need people to know this really happened.
But the Darkling definitely very much so values Grisha lives over non-Grisha lives. So I can imagine him also saying, don't waste my healer's energy on this non-Grisha person if she's not actually the Sun Summoner. I don't want to use a healer on her.
What's up? I have a question for you. What's up
Jeff.
Ivan's ass?
I don't know. I don't like him. I think he's very rude. I think that he just has many a stick up his ass. And
he is so grumpy.
He is. He's just so rude to Alina, and it doesn't seem warranted. He definitely seems to have just a general dislike for non-Grisha, and the fact that she is now the Sun Summoner, I can tell that he doesn't like, along with some of the other people we meet later on in the series and in the next chapter, don't like the fact that she went from like being an unknown non-Grisha to being the Sun Summoner in this time frame, and they treat her like she's walking around being like, oh, well, I'm the Sun Summoner, you should praise me because I'm the Sun Summoner, when really she's sitting in the coach telling them, I don't think this is who I am, leave me alone, I want to jump out of here.
There you go, you just worked it all out. That's what's wrong with Ivan. He had to earn his stripes. He had to earn everything he has. He probably broke his bones more times than he can count in his military training and became one of the Darkling's favorites. And now here's this girl that nobody knows anything about, and he probably looks down on women. I get that vibe from him, that he in general probably does not respect women as much as other men who are as strong as him. Ivan is clearly upset because Alina has not earned what he has earned, but he can already tell, because he's worked with the Darkling for a long time, that she is going to get all kinds of special treatment, and he is not having it.
He's like, I was meant to marry the Darkling. I was meant to be his one and only. It was me, Ivan. Wow, I'm losing my brain. Ivan, who was meant to be with the Darkling forever. But really, it's Fedyor who's meant for Ivan.
Headcanon, Ivan is in love with the Darkling, and he doesn't want the Darkling to have a crush on Alina.
Yes.
Okay, no, that's better. That's shorter, simpler, less complicated.
I like
He's
it.
jelly because he doesn't want anybody stealing his Darkling boyfriend. There you go.
Yeah, that's his boyfriend. I mean, I would be jealous too if someone just walked up and was like, look at me, I can make light. And my boyfriend was like, ooh, wow, I like light. Goodbye.
So I mentioned before that I was listening to Lauren Fortgang read this book, and there is a moment that, thank goodness I had my physical copy of Shadow and Bone handy, because I had to check this. I swear, I'm not kidding, that there is a line where Lauren Fortgang says, get her to my couch. And I thought, oh, that just sounds all kinds of problematic. I have to double check. I went back and I listened to this 3 or 4 times. She definitely says couch. And then I looked it up in the book, and it's no, get her to my coach. And I thought, okay, that's still not great because she didn't ask, but thank goodness he didn't say get her to my couch. That makes it sound like he's going to try to persuade her into something much worse than just joining his army.
Well, then Ivan would be really mad if that was the case, because that would not stand in any capacity.
No, Ivan would be thinking, that is my spot on the couch.
This is my spot on the couch. I was there yesterday, and I had a wonderful time. How can you do this to me? Speaking of canon, and also couches, though, too, I also did want to read the description of the Grisha tent, just because, as we already know, it is canon in Juliana's mind that the Darkling is a drag queen. We've already touched on this.
Seconded.
But this is just, yes, Jeff seconds it. This is just more proof that the Darkling's aesthetic choices for the Grisha tent prove that he is a drag queen. So, from the book. For a moment, all my fear disappeared, eclipsed by the beauty that surrounded me. The tent's inner walls were draped with cascades of bronze silk that caught the glimmering candlelights from chandeliers sparkling high above. The floors were covered with rich rugs and fur. Along the walls, shimmering silken partitions separated compartments where Grisha clustered in their vibrant kefta.
I mean, come on. Silk,
I mean, like,
chandeliers, fur.
The chandeliers is what got me. I was like, sparkling chandeliers. Wow.
Oh my gosh. I think really I'm just mad because my house doesn't look like the inside of this tent. I wouldn't have real furs, of course. I would have faux furs. That will make Mel very happy to know.
Yes, vegan faux furs.
Yes, vegan-friendly faux furs, but still, I mean...
But real crystal chandeliers,
is this really what you... This is not what tents look like at military bases.
No.
They don't have silken chandeliers.
Well, I mean, the Darkling is fabulous. We already determined that. So he must bring the fabulousness with him wherever he goes. I mean, by the time we get to meeting him, he has a raised platform with this, like, beautiful chair that he is perched upon. Jeff, did you have any other closing thoughts for this chapter?
My last thought for this chapter is being touched by a living amplifier sounds terrifying. Maybe it's just the Darkling doing it, or maybe it's the kind of power that's being unleashed from her. We haven't gotten a description of what the test looks like when they do it on kids yet. We just know that they do it. Mm-hmm. But when they do this test on children, I really hope it's not as scary as it sounds here.
Yeah, I don't want to be cut by someone by a knife, please and thank you. I'm gonna pass on that one.
There is a lot of talk about how important it is to make sure that you have people's consent before doing anything to them. If you're going to unleash something inside them that they don't fully understand, that they can't control, please explain to them what you're about to do and how it might make them feel. Doctors don't do tests on you without explaining the procedure and warning you that you may experience mild discomfort, or this might sting a little, and this is probably a little bit more than mild discomfort or stinging, but even so, like, tell her what's gonna happen to her.
Well, and he gets, like, way closer to her than she even realizes, too, because we get the whole, he makes the room completely dark, and then she says something along the lines of...
Do better. Just do better.
Yeah, he just, like, it's way too close to her, and then cutting her, and then, not a good idea. So, friends, ask for consent every time.
Yes.
No matter what you're doing.
In all things, ask for consent.
Yes.
So what is going on? We get her in this coach. She's just been tested in front of a lot of people. There is clearly a level of disrespect with her and the other military people that she's forced to be with. So, what gets us into chapter 4?
Yeah, so as you said, starting chapter 4, we're in the coach. And Alina just keeps protesting that she is just a lowly cartographer's apprentice, and that the Grisha, specifically Ivan, should just leave her alone and let her go back home. We actually get the moment where our trivia question from this week comes from, where Alina is handed a red kefta from the Grisha that is next to her in the coach per Ivan's orders. So Alina just spends the journey thinking about her fellow cartographers and wondering if everything's okay, wondering about Mal. And meanwhile, we meet Fedyor, which is her other escort, and they explain why Alina is so important if she really is the Sun Summoner, and that people are going to be coming after them, namely the Fjerdans and the Shuhan, and they don't really want that, so they're going to keep going all their way to Oz Alta. How do I pronounce that, Jeff? Oz Alta, as fast as they physically can. And this is also the chapter where we get Alina revealing what happened during that magic altitude test that she was given as a child when her and Mal were tested to see if they were Grisha. And she said that they detected no magical abilities. So we all just kind of wonder, why was Alina able to cast spells if she can't really access her magical ability anyway? Something we'll learn later. And Alina insists that the Darkling must have done something to her. And then we get the explanation that the Darkling is an amplifier. Aha! And we learn what amplifiers are, which is something that amplifies a Grisha's power. And Ivan shows her that he has a bear claw for his amplifier, and that only those who are granted by the Darkling can have amplifiers. And then, several days later, this is where Jeff inserts the SpongeBob music.
Several days later.
Yes. Exactly. So, Alina and Fedyor are discussing using magic to save lives. Fedyor explains that he became a heartrender because he could do more good, and Alina is confused. And they just talk about that choice. And then suddenly, all of a sudden, this discussion is interrupted by the Fjerdans. Oh no! Alina stays behind in the coach. She's given a knife. We don't know if that's a good idea or not. We don't even know if she can use that knife. And unfortunately, she is pulled out of the coach by this really ugly big man. And he drags her off into the woods, and he is going to kill her. And then all of a sudden, we get the Darkling and some other First and Second Army people. The Fjordan is like, I am going to kill you. Just watch me do it. And the Darkling is like, no. And then we get... And Alina looks up, and this man is cut in two. And Alina's safe, and she gets apprehended by the Darkling to ride with him the rest of the way to Alzalta. Again, not asking for consent from her. The end.
I have a couple of questions.
Yes, Jeff. What questions?
Noticed words poking up there like sorcerer and casting spells, and we kind of dedicated a lot of time to drawing distinctions between magic and the small science. So maybe not sorcerers and casting spells. She summoned light because he made her, which, just to reiterate, consent is key. But not spells or sorcerers?
Yeah.
Maybe?
Yeah. No, they're not. They're the small science. They use the small science. But
other thing, did she really explain what happened when she got tested? She explains she got tested and nothing happened, but she doesn't really tell them why.
Yeah, I think in this moment she doesn't really know why either.
No, because like everything else in her life, it's repressed and it's gonna come up later.
Mm-hmm.
She is a long series of repressed things coming up. Yeah,
just a lot of early life vomit just coming right back on up her throat as we keep going.
You know what really kind of makes me laugh about this chapter is that it becomes immediately clear why the Darkling didn't just travel with her himself in the first place. He's using a classic interrogation tactic. He's putting her in an enclosed space with a good cop and a bad cop. The bad cop is Ivan. The good cop is Fedyor. Yeah, Fedyor is being very complimentary, very compassionate, very understanding. Fedyor is Olivia Benson, whereas Ivan is being an aggressive, doubtful, conceited jerk. He's Elliot Stabler here. That was a Law & Order SVU cut for anybody who doesn't watch that show. But the point is, he's trying to make sure she can... Because some people respond to one or the other. Either she's going to be intimidated into giving up the goods, or she's going to be gently persuaded into it. It could be one or the other.
And I definitely think that if he was to sit there in the coach with her, she would just say no and be terrified and not give him any information, really, unless he forced it out of her, like he likes to do with a lot of things, apparently. And yeah, I think that it's probably a good interrogation tactic. Plus, one of my questions was, what in the heck are they doing for so long in this coach? There's not like TV to watch. They don't have phones to scroll through. They're literally just sitting there looking at each other for God only knows how long.
Well, that's just a question that you could ask of anybody who was alive before we had those things, because people traveled that way all the time. We know they have books, but I doubt they brought anything for her to read because they probably didn't think they'd need anything to pass the time with. I mean, they were probably just planning on discussing the mission. What went wrong with it? What could we do better next time? You know, they were going to talk about military stuff. But in this case, they're going to just keep taking their shots at her until they see if they can get her to crack. That's what they're doing. They are interrogating. That's how they're passing the time. They don't need fun things for her to do.
Play tic-tac-toe. They could play that game where you look out the window and you're like, I see something blue. I spy with my little eye something blue. And then It could be like, the ocean. Oh, you got it right. And Fenrir is so proud of himself that he got it right. He's like, oh, wow, look at me just being so smart over here. Yeah, I have no idea where I'm going with that. But I do like your point here, Jeff, because we get in, like we said in this chapter, we get Alina being given the kefta by the Corporalkai, and she is stunned because she learns that these are made out of bulletproof material, essentially, and it just kind of draws another line between the First and Second Armies, that the Second Army gets these fancy jackets that are essentially bulletproof, and the First Army, which is the one that is essentially shooting bullets at each other, doesn't get any kind of protection like that.
Well, it kind of makes sense, because the Second Army is going up, at least at this point, they're only going up against the armies from other countries, and the armies from other countries, as far as we know, don't have an army made up of all Grisha. So they're probably using a lot more guns than the Second Army would be using. So it makes sense to give them something that's bulletproof. It also makes sense to me that the First Army wouldn't have access to this material, because Alina wonders, do the First Army know about this? Do they get them? And I'm thinking, of course they don't. The Second Army isn't going to give something that good to the First Army when they can't even get respect from the First Army. It's part of what makes them special.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the Second Army doesn't even use its healers on the people from the First Army. You think, oh yeah, like, let's keep our armies healthy and alive and things such as that, but they don't even, if you're not a Grisha, you don't get to access to the healers, which is just not okay in my mind.
You have to wonder how often that comes up at negotiations, though. Like, the Grisha have the ability to heal themselves in a different and possibly even more efficient way than the medics of the First Army or of non-Grisha do. You have to wonder, do the Grisha healers just not want to heal non-Grisha? Are they forbidden from doing so? Is it just military red tape? Because it's been established that if you're a Grisha, you're conscripted into the army whether you want to be or not.
Well, I think also along the lines of talking about the healers, I think, is it better to kill or to cure, as you said? That's
a line in the book that I feel like describes it pretty well. And it actually illustrates another contrast in dynamics that's represented by Ivan and Fedyor. Because Fedyor wanted to heal people. He wanted to help people. He wanted to restore. Whereas Ivan is super aggressive, wants to go out there, cause damage. He wants to prove he's the strongest. He wants to destroy his enemies. He wants to crush them.
Well, Heartrenders, I think you're trying to say, like, Heartrenders and healers are essentially have the same skill set, and there's a very fine line between who is a Heartrender and who is a healer, and it's more of your moral compass than your actual skill set that drives you in either direction.
Exactly. It's just a question of, what do you value most? What do you think is most important?
Yep. To kill or to cure, essentially.
To kill or to cure
Fabulous.
Would be a great title for a book also.
Yes, it would be. I won't be writing that book, though. But that's okay. So, also in this chapter, we get an introduction to people who are absolutely just so lovely and wonderful, the Fjerdans, and we just think so highly of them after this chapter, because they just are just like chef's kiss, just so wonderful and beautiful, and we love them, right, Jeff?
I can't help but feel like you don't actually mean that they're wonderful. The listeners can't see the look on your face, but I can see it, and it doesn't seem like you think they're that wonderful.
No, I mean, they try to kill Alina, and just the way that Lee, like, portrays them in such a kind of rough and gruff manner is not good. They just attack the coach and try to kill her.
Well, yeah. I mean, they just talked about how important it is to get her to the capital for her own safety. They have to immediately give you a reason to believe that that was the right course of action. And of course, there's war going on all the time. Everybody sees everybody else as the enemy, not somebody else that they can peacefully coexist with. The First and Second Army see each other as enemies, so they're definitely going to see people from other countries as enemies. We're in Ravka. This is where this thing happens. So
we fight things.
They're not going to show you right off the bat examples of Fjerdans who, oh, we're not so different, you and I. No, first they have to give you a reason to dislike and mistrust the Fjerdans.
Yeah.
So, of course, the first Fjerdans that we meet are not the only example of how every Fjerdan is always, but that's reading it with an open mind. At first blush, yes, the Fjerdans that we meet do not seem very friendly.
But it does set us up to get to the point where we get to see the cut, which, listeners, this is something that will haunt Alina for a really long time. Definitely not scarring to look at in any capacity.
No, it's just a little bit of graphic violence. It's rated E for everyone, as in everybody should be really fucking scared of this cut.
Yeah.
Talk about a deep cut.
Wow, that was a great joke, Jeff.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for bringing your comedic skills to the podcast today.
I do what I can. Just to circle back for just a minute to this, when they're talking about the amplifiers, first of all, hate the idea that they have to kill animals to get them.
I don't like that.
It's a perfect illustration of how, the Darkling has favorites. That's part of it. Mm-hmm. You have to kill the animal yourself. You only get one. You only get one if the Darkling says that you can. And I think I might have missed this part. Do they specify that only the oprichniki can have amplifiers? I don't think they
I don't think it says...
I don't think they say that. That's just kind of the impression that I get. Because if the Darkling trusts you above all others, it makes sense that you would be part of his personal guard. So with that being the case, who but somebody who is qualified to be an oprichniki would be able to get an amplifier?
Do we get a list of who is an oprichniki and who isn't? Because
somebody has probably made a list somewhere of who has been identified as a member of the oprichniki, but I don't think they publish a list of those people because some of them don't get names because we can't dive into every single member of the Darkling's personal guard. Then the book would never be about anything else.
Because I'm just thinking of one of my girlfriends who we just met in the other chapter, who will go unnamed currently, that has a amplifier, and I don't know if they ever mentioned if she's part of the oprichniki. It would make sense if she was, given the context and some other things that we know about her when we go forward with the book. But my girlfriend there, I know she has a amplifier though, so maybe something to think about. If anyone out there is obviously not a first-time reader and has a list of oprichniki that you would like to bestow upon us, we will take it. Thank you very much.
Yeah, there's places online, it looks like, where they have identified who the members of the oprichniki are, but it's even the ones that I'm finding here, they're acknowledging that not every oprichniki is actually named.
Ah, okay. So it's a group of people that largely goes fully unidentified as to exactly who is part of it. I feel like that is most of the stuff that we had for this chapter, Jeff. Did you have any closing thoughts for chapter 4?
There was one thing, and that was in the earlier chapter, I started to get this feeling when they're talking about Alina's newly uncovered power, that she goes through denial about what's happening. She keeps saying, I'm not a Grisha, I don't have this power, I'm just a map maker. And then she's getting angry that people aren't listening to her, they aren't taking her seriously. And I'm thinking, okay, she's in denial, and then she's angry. And these sound like the first 2 stages of the 5 stages of grief. And I'm wondering, is this going to become a thing? Because in order to have that, we would need bargaining, depression, and acceptance. So she's going to have to make some kind of deal regarding her newfound power, and then she's going to end up in despair, probably because the deal she tried to make wouldn't work. I think that's usually how those two go together. And then she's going to have to accept what's happening to her. You think that's where we're going with this?
I think that is a fabulous point to be making, and I definitely feel as though we are on that trajectory. So buckle in, listeners, and get ready to grieve whatever Alina was prior to what she is now, because we got a sun summoner on our hands now, friends, and that comes at a cost.
So now that we finished up our chapter discussion, we're going to play a game. And if other people want to play the game along with us, I think that would be fun. I've noticed that a lot of the podcasts that I listen to that are kind of centered around books, they love a good game of Kiss, Marry, Kill. So we're going to try that. I'll give you 3 characters. You tell me which one you would kiss, which one you would marry, and which one you would kill. And if we come up with a fun name for that game that's kind of centered around this universe later, that would be, I think, kind of fun too. So here's your 3 characters, and then you can give me 3.
Okay.
Right, your characters are Mal, Fedyor, and Alexi.
Ooh, okay. I think I'm definitely going to kill Mal. Like, I know that straight out the gate. That is no question to me. I know who I'm killing straight out the gate. Alexi, I think I might just kiss Alexi, because, I mean, I don't really know too much about him. I know he loves the Darkling, and I know I also love the Darkling too. So we could have that little bit of connection and play.
He's like the only friend she had that wasn't Mal, and you just killed Mal, so I think the least you can do is give Alexi a little kiss.
I kiss him goodbye before he gets taken away by the volcra.
Oh,
and
that just breaks my heart.
And then because I really love the actor who plays Fedyor in the TV series, and that is my headcanon version of Fedyor. I feel like I'll marry Fedyor, because I feel like he's a nice enough dude. He's got power. He's clearly got some source of income. And
cool. If you're going to marry Fedyor, you might want to start pronouncing his name Fedyor. Fedyor. Like, have you fed your cat
Fedyor.
Today? I know I have.
Have you fed your... I have not. I have not fed your cat.
I wouldn't say that to his face.
Fed my dog.
Okay, so what do you got for me? Give me 3 characters.
Okay, so I'm thinking... I think some good characters. So the lead cartographer is your first choice. I think that your second choice would be the volcra that steals Alexi, specifically that one. And I think that as a third choice, I would like to pick the Grisha who is standing outside the tent, who denies the people entry to the tent. So you have the Grisha, who is a not nice person. You have the volcra, specifically the one that steals Alexi, and you have the lead cartographer.
Okay, so a cartographer, a volcra, and Stuffy Grisha. Okay, I'm gonna kiss Stuffy Grisha because I just want to see the look on their face when I kiss them and then run away. Like, excuse me, sir, yeah. I have an urgent message. Okay, what is it? Mwah. Bye!
Bye!
I'm going to kill the map maker because...
Wow, okay, this is a bold choice to be making,
Not really,
Jeff. Wow.
Because, look, I've seen what happens when they try to kill the volcra, and it doesn't work. It's better to be in this case, I'm going to say it's better to be the right hand of the devil than in his past. So I'm going to marry the volcra, because the volcra that takes Alexi can clearly provide not only sustenance, but protection, because volcra are so hard to kill. So I'm kissing the Grisha, I'm marrying the volcra, and I'm killing the head cartographer.
Now my question to you is, Jeff, are you prepared to live the rest of your life in darkness and have very high dental care bills? Because the volcra have a lot of teeth.
Juliana, I don't know how to tell you this, but I live my life in darkness all the time. And my dental bills are very, very high. So this is not new to me.
Oh, okay.
It's just another day.
So you're prepared. Okay, that's fine. Just checking in just to make sure that you're prepared for the life that you're going to lead as the heir to the volcra throne.
Bet. If anybody has any input on either of these Kiss, Marry, Kill sets, please let us know, because we are just dying to hear what people have to say. If we get any particularly good ones, then we will probably share them on our next episode. I think we would have to.
I feel like the best situation that can come from this is that other people identify as the person marrying the volcra, and the volcra has kind of a sister wives situation going on. I feel like that would be the best possible situation for this volcra. He just has many, many spouses. He, she, them, they have many, many spouses, and we can start a TLC show on the volcra. We are now going to go into our question of the week, which still needs a name for this segment. So please, if you have any ideas, let us know. And we will start with last episode's question, which is, Alina is taken to the little palace by the Darkling to understand her newfound power. What color is the kefta Alina is forced to be given in the Darkling's coach? And the correct answer was red.
Corporal
It was
guy.
a red kefta. Yes, it was the healer's kefta who heals her inside the coach. So, correct answers were submitted from Frumpy But Super Smart, Craft Girl Cosplay, Carmen_A, Mel, and Silent Icarus. So thank you all for participating in our question, and congratulations on getting the question correct. So, next episode's question, and this is in regards to chapters 5 and 6, which are the next chapters we will be reading on the podcast. And the question is, how old does the Darkling tell Alina he is in chapters 5 and 6? And if you have an answer for us, please just tweet at us, email us, or send us a DM, and we will read your name on the show. And if you would like to get in contact with us, first off, we would love if you would tell people that you know to listen to this podcast. That is the best way that we grow our audience as a podcast, is through word of mouth, and we highly appreciate anyone who has done that already. So shout out to you if you've done that. We love you. And you can listen to this podcast on all platforms where pods are cast, and we are also on YouTube as well.
If you want to get in touch with us, keep up with what we're sending out there, and just have a fun conversation with us about the show, you can find us on Twitter and Instagram at IntoTheFoldPod.
You can also send us an email at intothefoldpod@gmail.com.
And if you're somebody listening who is enjoying what you're hearing, if you would consider leaving us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts, that does help with visibility, and it lets us know how much you're liking us. So if you leave us something lovely in a review, then we can read it on the show. And that's going to do it for this episode, so we will see you on episode 5, where we will be discussing chapters 5 and 6 of Shadow and Bone. I'm Jeff.
And I'm Juliana. Until next time,
See you in the fold.
in the fold. Okay.
Awesome. All right, let's warm up emotionally. Let's warm up. Just let's. A sassy Sicilian sold me a spicy sausage. A sassy Sicilian sold me a spicy sausage. How now, brown cow? How now, brown cow? 99 nuns interning at an Indiana nunnery. 99 nuns interning at an Indiana nunnery. Oh, there's no way I'm not using that. You just
that can be
unleashed
the
the
new
fold.
intro music. I know. Luckily, it doesn't smell, so I think we're okay. Because I've been drinking peach sparkling water. Fabulous! In every single way possible, and just so extra.
This is the greatest headcanon I have ever heard.
Fan art per my request of Nikolai.
You mean Nikolai?
Nikolai. That's how I will be pronouncing it. Thank you very much.
Nikolai.
And Nikolai.
Just Nikolai. They made fan art of Nikolai.
Nikolai. Is that better?
Better.
Okay. At ease, Captain. Please give us our report for Chapter 3.
Oh my god, you don't know military stuff.
No, I don't.
Yikes. Oh boy. You and Alexi just go start your Darkling fan club and leave the military stuff to... Never mind.
Aye, aye, Captain. Hello, Alina. Yeah.
If we were in person,
I appreciate that.
I would be talking much louder. But this is dramatic because it's a book.
It's very dramatic.
I'm performing right now. That right there is the impression of my rump. She cannot sit in it.
I do imagine it.
Juliana.
Oh, Juliana. Yes. Juliana.
It's me, David.